Once again here at the Fjord Oyster Bank for the Sheriff Sit Down, presented by our great friends at Our Community Credit Union with Mason County Sheriff Ryan Spurling. How are you?
Good. How are you doing, Jeb?
Good. We are just before the Sheriff's Lunch here. It's something you do monthly here in Hoodsport, but you're also at Lakeland Village now at the Bistro, and you're also at Spencer Lake. It's a good opportunity for folks to get to see you and hear from you about things that are going on. And one thing that we talk often about when it comes to Mason County and the Sheriff's Office is kind of the structure, the training, the leadership. And you have been putting in the yeoman's work here recently with a lot of hours put in and a lot of promotions, and people are moving around. Tell us some of the latest where folks are fitting into the office.
Well, back in 2007, I was trained for 5 weeks from the International Association of Chiefs of Police to be a facilitator for what was called LPO, Leadership in Police Organizations. Now, that was gifted to law enforcement by West Point back in 1990. So it's West Point's leadership and behavioral science program, and it's what they teach when you're a student in West Point. And they painted it blue so that it would apply to law enforcement instead of just military. And when I came here, Sheriff Salisbury said, I want our people to be some of the best trained leaders in the state of Washington. The IACP changed some of the material from West Point and copyrighted it, and it was $3,000 a person to go through it. And it was very cost prohibitive, especially for small agencies.
Yeah.
So I got the original material that was not copyrighted, and we've been teaching that since 2014. And we partnered up with our 5 sheriff's offices in the region. And right now we have over 200 people that have gone through the 120-hour course that we cram into 80 hours that are Leadership Academy at West Point, all the students go through. So we've had now over 200 people in most of our agency at Mason County Sheriff's Office, all the way down to our field training officers, and we're starting to get into our deputy ranks now, are trained on leadership, because that's our mission statement for Mason County Sheriff's Office, to be leaders in our community by providing the best services and safety possible. So we believe that just by the nature of our position, we have to be leaders. People look to us in crisis.
Yeah.
The deputies, the people in the support services, in the jail, it really doesn't matter. We need leaders. So that's where we're focusing, and super excited at the last sheriff's breakfast to be able to promote 2 sergeants, 2 corporals, and then we had a whole bunch of awards. And a lot of it has to do with they believe this stuff, and they are doing everything they can to be the best leaders they can in the community and to own the law enforcement in the community. In other words, take ownership of their community.
What are some of the themes that the leadership training goes through? Is it not, I mean, when you come out there and you look, I know that you particularly in the office don't come out and say, look at me, I have a badge, you must respect me. But it's through building consensus, building trust, like team building exercise. I love the concept of leadership, and I'm always looking into it more. So what are some of the themes that the people have to go through?
It's the leadership and behavioral sciences that come from the college world.
Okay.
From academics. And it's split into 4 groups. We spend about 4 days just studying the individual. And in the individual, for example, you're studying the differences of each generation, what makes each generation tick, and what are the nuances of leading different generations.
Oh, wow.
Then we get into the equity theory. Why is it important that you're equitable as a leader and fair in the way you approach things and how people, it's basically studying human nature.
Yeah.
Right? And then we get into attribution theory, where people have personal biases, and how do they attribute, okay, I failed, but I have an internal locus of control, so I blame myself, or I fail, so I have an external locus of control, so I blame everybody else. So it's learning human nature.
Oh, wow.
So that you can better lead individuals and understand. One would be, an example would be a high growth needs versus a low growth needs person. A high growth needs and a low growth needs person can do the same amount of tasks, but how you as a leader present those tasks to them makes a difference on their motivation.
Sure.
See, I'm a type A, high growth needs. If you don't stack them on top of each other for me, I'm bored. But for other people, it overwhelms them. So you can give them the same amount of tasks. You just present it different as a leader.
Yeah.
So, that'd be area 1. Area 2, then we start looking at the groups. when you take all these individuals and you put them together as groups, how do they now process things?
Right.
Because sometimes the group has influence over the individual, like sports teams, bands, whatever it is. Then we study the leader, yourself. What are the issues? What are the bases of power that you lead from? You lead from legitimate power because you have a position of rank. Do you lead from coercive power? If you don't do what you're told, you're going to be docked pay or whatever. Do you lead from reward power? If you do this, I'll give you rewards. Do you lead from expert power? I'm the expert and nobody else has the information.
Yeah.
Or do you lead from referent power? And that is because people internalize your values and they don't want to disappoint you. Obviously, leaders use all of them, but it's kind of a neat study to figure out how you do.
Yeah.
And then we learn different ways of leading, and you can't lead everybody the same. If you have kids, you know that.
Right.
What motivates one person doesn't motivate the other. And then in the last section, we study the organization and the external environment. How do we lead the external environment, and how do we lead as the organization, such as leading culture, all those type of things. And here we go.
Look at that nice little coffee here.
Thank you. How do we shape culture? How do we make sure that there's ethics in law enforcement? Because, you go back to the Rampart scandal in the 90s and down in LA. How did they get there? Cops didn't come on board to be corrupt. How did they get to the point where the end justified the means, and how do we as leaders prevent that from occurring by creating an ethical environment at work? So those are some of the things we study, and it's I learn every time I teach.
That's amazing, and it really does help build not only that culture within the department, but it does trickle out into kind of how other folks are able to, you don't want to say follow along, and you're not following along blindly, but understanding the mission, if you will. And I can see how, coming from West Point, the training that goes into the folks who then represent and protect our country, and just the skills that those folks then bring into the private sector after their time in military. It's amazing. The other thing I know, over the years, you've had folks go and participate in the FBI Academy, and that's like a whole nother set of amazing sets of training opportunities to come back to the sheriff's office. He wasn't in the FBI Academy, I don't believe, but one of the chiefs that you've had around for a very long time is getting ready to retire. And I've had
We have two chiefs getting ready to retire.
Oh my God.
It's just that our jail chief is first.
Jail Chief Kevin Hanson, who I have had the chance to interview over probably his whole time as the chief since way back 2016. Coming in and explaining the issues in the jail. He has put a ton of work into the structural, the bones of the jail, with the different folks who work in the control room or the deputy officers there. It is one of the only handful of accredited jails in the state, which you guys have put in a lot of work to be accredited in the sheriff's office. Shelton Police also accredited. So just amazing work there. Talk to us a little bit about what's the future look like for the jail, continued conversations with our partners in other counties, or how's the commission looking at this, and what kind of a legacy you think is Chief Hanson going to leave there?
Chief Hanson, right now, besides Rick Bishop, who works for the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Chiefs of Police as a jail expert, besides Rick, Chief Hanson's probably the most experienced jail chief in the state of Washington. We stole him from Lewis County.
Right, I remember that.
I was the temporary jail chief in 2016, and our jail was hurting in a lot of ways. We weren't up to industry standards, and we weren't in best practices, and we'd had lawsuits and other things. So what we did is, when I left and we had recruited Chief Hanson to come in, we did what's called a Lee map, and we asked the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Chiefs of Police to bring experts in to evaluate every element of our jail. And they gave us a 50-page document that said, in order for you to make the accreditation standards, you have to accomplish these 50 pages. And it took us from 2016 until last year, and Kevin made that happen.
Wow.
He led that, and we are one of 3 sheriff's offices where the jail owns the sheriff's office that's actually accredited.
Okay.
And when you're accredited, it reduces our Washington County risk pool insurance, because you're less likely to be sued or have successful lawsuits. and it ensures that we're doing best practices and industry standards. So it's been a big deal for us, and Kevin has led the way and trained people, and he's just made a huge difference in our community.
You and I have talked, previous Sheriff Salisbury has talked about this as well. These are tough positions. They are not the flashy, you're on the road, you see the car go by types of positions.
Right.
These are the in the trenches types of things. How do you advocate for what is going on in these less visible positions, while, you know, making sure people know, okay, you're not maybe doing the flashy stuff out front that everybody can go, I saw this happened, but the structural integrity of the whole office builds up from people who, like Chief Hanson, has been working so hard in a very, unless you're taking a tour or unless you're getting thrown in there,
It's behind the scenes.
you don't go.
Unless you get,
You don't
incarcerated.
go. Yeah. So explain to me, like, you know, the motives there to make sure that all the aspects build up to then the front-facing part of what people see.
The key is all of us have to revolve around the mission of the Mason County Sheriff's Office. And
Right.
the more they understand our responsibility to the community and what their part is as a corrections facility in keeping Mason County safe, and the more we can get them proud of what they do, because they are relatively unseen.
Yeah.
They are relatively unappreciated because they're not out in the community where people can tell them, thank you, great work.
Yeah.
But they're there 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, feeding, medicating, exercising, making sure that all the needs of these inmates are met and their constitutional requirements. And, you know, their laundry is done, all of that type of stuff, making sure day to day that we're covered.
Yeah.
And they are covered. And oftentimes it's unappreciated. The patrol guys oftentimes get somebody says, hey, thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
good
yeah.
citizens.
Or you're at the parade and you hand
Right.
out a sticker or something like that, and you're right there. You see them in your face, and these guys are behind the jail, basically.
And, you know, the other night I went in there and just spent a couple hours talking to my jail employees, making sure that I heard their concerns about the next jail chief.
Yeah.
Because my process for the next jail chief is very important, and I want them to have input because that's where they work and it's very important to them. The other thing is we're trying to get them out in the community a little more at the breakfasts, bring them out, let people tell them, hey, thank you for what you do, because our community is great at supporting law enforcement, and it's one of the reasons we are able to retain our people.
It really is. And then that kind of leads me in. I got two last questions. We got to get into the lunch so the community can ask you some questions as well. Where are you at, or what are you hearing about any sort of issues popping up still with the legislative session? We've heard some back and forth on the different budgets that may or may not impact law enforcement. I know that your counterpart in Thurston County, Sheriff Sanders, is heavily vocal on what's going on and what people are working on and things like that. What are some of the top line issues that you're seeing or communicating to our representatives?
I just spoke with Senator McEwen today on a bill that was looking at putting a speed governor on cars if they get so many speeding tickets. And we communicate back and forth. He asks what my thoughts are on that type of thing. So we're still engaged. A lot of it is I'm waiting to see what's made it through. It's like 1399, the one that would limit who could run for sheriff.
Sure.
and be able to remove outside of the electoral process, have a state government be able to remove sheriffs. That one did not make it past the House.
Yeah.
So that one died on the floor, and that was a big deal. And anything that intrudes on the local citizens' ability to be involved in government, I'm not for, because their voice is critical. We can't just abdicate all our authority to a state government and say, you guys do everything. That's not right. It's kind of like safety in the community. No community should abdicate their safety of that community to law enforcement, because there's not enough of us. They have to partner with us.
Right.
And they have to have ownership of their community. That's the only way it was designed to work. There's checks and balances and everything else. So it's the same thing with state government. And just trying to get people to stay in their own lane and not try to take other people's jobs is what I pay attention to.
The last question that I have, and you kind of just led me right into it. It's about, we're coming into spring. the snowbirds are coming home. They may end up coming back to a house they haven't been to in months and notice something amiss. The lawnmower's gone, the chain on the door, the gate is broken or something like this. These are the non-emergency or
Right.
the online tools.
Absolutely. If there's no suspect and it's not in progress, you can go on to our website, and we just updated it because some citizens gave us some feedback that it was hard to locate. So
Okay.
our IT people have updated it both on website and so you can use a phone or a computer. You can go right on there and do online reporting. Again, only if it's not in progress and you don't have any suspect information, like something was stolen.
Yeah.
That way, somebody will get back to you a little quicker, so you don't have to wait for a deputy for 2-3 hours.
Sure.
Because they're prioritizing other calls, and you'll get a case number for insurance.
Even if you have maybe security camera footage, because it's not in progress, that's the case. You can add that in your notes, right?
Right, and then the deputies will screen that, and
Yeah.
if they have something they need to
Okay.
get involved with, they will.
Very good, very good. Well, it's always good to talk with you and catch up on things going on. You got a room full of people that are waiting to bend your ear another hour or so to talk about things going on. These sheriff sit-downs are presented by our great partners in the community, our community credit union. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Yep.